Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, ever merciful. Indeed, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again for having within our midst, our noble teacher, Ustadh Raha Batts, حفظه ta'ala, going through the commentary of Kitaab At-Tawheed with explanation of Shaykh Ubaid bin AbdiLlah Al Jabirī رحمه ta'ala. فليتفضل الأستاذ الفاضل and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us إخلاص النية في القول والعمل. تفضل بارك الله فيكم.
فيكم بارك. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. We continue with our study of this book Kitaab At-Tawheed, the Shaykh Islam Muhammad ibn Abdil Wahaab alayhi rahmatullah rahmatan wasi'ah. We, in the last sitting, broke into the chapter entitled Bab Man Haqqaqa At-Tawheed Dakhala Jannah Bighayri Hisab, a chapter, whoever actualizes At-Tawheed will enter paradise without any reckoning. And we began the discussion regarding the ayah, the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, Inna Ibrahima kana ummatan qanitan lillah hanifan wa lam yakun minal mushrikeen. Indeed, Ibrahim, he was an ummah. Indeed, Ibrahim, he was an ummah. And he was qanit lillah, he was one who was devoutly obedient to Allah. He was a hanif, he was a true monotheist. Wa lam yakun minal mushrikeen, he was not amongst the polytheists. We discussed this ayah in detail from the words of Shaykh Al-Allama Al-Walid Ubaid ibn AbdiLlah Al Jabirī rahmatullah alayhi. And now we are going to touch upon the second ayah of this chapter. It is the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ لَا يُشْرِكُونَ, and those who do not associate partners with their Lord. The Shaykh Ubaid rahmatullah alayhi, he mentions al-ayah al-thaniya, the second verse. Here qawluhu ta'ala, it is the statement of Allah, the exalted, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ لَا يُشْرِكُونَ, and those who do not associate partners with their Lord. Those who do not associate partners with their Lord. He says, هذه الآية واضحة في أن الله عز وجل أثنى على خاصة أوليائه. That this verse is clear, and that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala commends and He speaks well of His specific awliya, بأنهم لا يشركون بالله, and He praises them for what characteristic? For the fact that they do not associate partners with Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So the distancing of oneself from shirk is a praiseworthy characteristic due to which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala commends and speaks well about His servants. Now, He says, this is because a shirk in kana asgar qalilan fahuwa yunafi kamal at-tawheed. This is because due to the detriment of shirk, if it is minor shirk, if it is a smaller form of shirk, then it would nullify and eradicate the perfection and completion of one's at-Tawheed. Now, one can akbar, but if it is major shirk, فإنه ينافي التوحيد بكلية, then it negates and eradicates one's Tawheed in totality. So if one, mathalan, swears by other than Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, one has riyah in his ibadah, mathalan, then by way of doing so, one negates the perfection and completion of his Tawheed, meaning there is deficiency in your Tawheed if you do the likes of these things. However, if your shirk is akbar, then it negates Tawheed in totality, thus placing you amongst the realms of the mushrikun, So the individual who does so is mushrikun kafir. He is a mushrik and he's a polytheist. Or he's a mushrik and he's a disbeliever. Now, وَيُنْقِلَ الْمَرْءِ مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ إِلَى الْكُفْرِ. And it takes the person outside of the fold of Islam, placing him into the realms of disbelief. وَهَذَا لَا يُمْكِنْ أَنْ يَتَّصِفْ بِهِ وَلِيٌّ لِلَّهِ. It is not possible that a true wali of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala can be described with this characteristic, meaning shirk, in any of its forms, major or minor. The true wali of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, as we discussed before, the awliya of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, they are al-mu'min at-taqi, the believer who has taqwa of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. The believer, the one who is a true person of iman, and he has taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal. Thus, by way of that, avoiding what Allah Ta'ala has prohibited, وَمِنْ أَعْظَمِ مَا نَهَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُ الشِّرْك. And from the greatest of that which Allah Ta'ala has prohibited is a shirk, polytheism. And he enacts the command of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and from the greatest of the commands of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the affair of At-Tawhīd. And so, this is the true wali of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So you see, it's not possible for the wali of Allah Azza wa Jal to be described with this characteristic, shirk, major or minor. Now, he said that آمن به وما جاء عنه على ألسن رسوله عليه الصلاة والسلام, meaning the one who believes in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and that which has come from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala upon the tongues of his messengers عليهم الصلاة والسلام. ويزيد ما قلناه وضوحا إن شاء الله حين تضم هذه الآية من سورة قد أفلح المؤمنون. And what will increase this affair of, what will increase what we have stated up to this point in clarity, inshallah ta'ala, is that which is stated before it and after it within Surah Al-Mu'minun. إِلَى مَا قَبْلَهَا وَإِلَى مَا بَعْدَهَا. That which came before this ayah, meaning the ayah, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ لَا يُشْرِكُونَ. And that which came before this statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and that which came after it. If we examine all of those statements of Allah Azza wa Jal, what came before that statement and what came after that statement, it will increase the affair in clarity for you. Sure. He mentions that now this will make clear the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal asna ala khawas awliya'i. That Allah Ta'ala, he commends and speaks well about specific friends of his. وَلَا يُمْكِنْ أَنْ يَتَّصِفْ بِهَا أو بِهَا اتصافا كاملا إلا من كان على شاكلتهم. It is not possible for anyone to be described with this characteristic in the most complete and in a more complete manner, in a more perfect manner, than those who, other than those who are upon their way, those who resemble them. And أسأل الله أن يجعلني وإياكم معهم ومنهم بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا والآخرة. It's a beautiful dua which Shaykh Ubaid makes for the reader and those who are listening, that I ask Allah Ta'ala to make me and you amongst them and from them, by way of the firm statement in the life of this world and in the hereafter. And to that we say Ameen. والسياق يبدأ من قوله جل وعلا. The context begins. Now the verse in the chapter, it is the 59th verse of Surah Al-Mu'minun. The 59th verse of Surah Al-Mu'minun. Now, and so those who have your Quran along with you, perhaps pull it out and read along with us, inshallah ta'ala, starting at the 57th verse. We're going to start from the 57th verse, and you'll see how the context makes it clear that Allah ta'ala praises and speaks well about certain ones of his friends. And from the most prominent of their characteristics is the actualization of At-Tawhīd and the avoidance of shirk in all of its types. He says in verse 57, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ هُمْ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ. Those who, in relation to the khashya and the fear of their Lord, they are mushfiqun. They are soft-hearted, if you will. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ يُؤْمِنُونَ. And those who believe in the verses or the signs, the ayats of their Lord. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِرَبِّهِمْ لَا يُشْرِكُونَ. And then those who do not associate partners with their Lord. This is the shahid from this set of verses. He says, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ. Those who put forth whatever they put forth of goodness, while their hearts are in fear that they're going to return back to their Lord. أُولَٰئِكَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ. They are those who hasten towards all types of good deeds, and they are the foremost in doing so. He says, فَهَذِهِ خَمْسِ صِفَاتٍ شَرَّفَ اللَّهُ بِهَا ذِكْرَ خَوَاسِ أَوْلِيَائِهِ. So here you have 5 qualities or characteristics with which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has ennobled the mention of specific ones amongst His servants. Now, he says, Al-Wasfu Al-Awwal. Now, you should take these notes, inshallah ta'ala, and write these descriptions down. The first description in this set of verses, إِشْفَاقُهُمْ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. Them being in a state of fear of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, their hearts being softened from the fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. فَهُمْ كَمَا أَنَّهُمْ يُطْمِعُونَ فِي رَحْمَتِهِ وَعَظِيمِ ثَوَابِهِ فَإِنَّهُمْ كَذَلِكَ يَخْشَوْنَ إِقَابِهِ. He says, just as they have a hope and a desire for the mercy of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and the tremendous reward of Allah Azza wa Jal, فَإِنَّهُمْ كَذَلِكَ يَخْشَوْنَ إِقَابَهِ. Just similarly, they are afraid of the punishment of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And this is the best and most exemplary path to be upon, meaning combining between the affairs of hope and fear. خشية الله وهي خوف مصحوب بإجلال وتعظيم. The khashya of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the term khashya is amongst the words that are utilized for fear. But each of the words that signify fear in the Arabic language, they have subtleties along with them that distinguish them from the other words. And this word khashya, having khashya of Allah Ta'ala, it is khawf, it is a fear that is mashubun, that is accompanied by veneration and respect, or veneration and reverence, we should say. Veneration and reverence. Now, so it is fear accompanied by veneration and reverence. So this is the first characteristic that Allah Ta'ala described His khawas, the elite amongst His awliya, as having, that ishfaq, their hearts are soft, and they have fear that is accompanied by hope. Fear and hope. Well, this fear, the khashya of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, it is fear that has along with it ijlal, veneration and reverence. The second description, imanahum bi ayatillah, them having iman in the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having iman in the ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the ayat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala are of 2 types. They are the ayat al-shar'iyya, then you have the ayat al-kawniyya. Ayat al-shar'iyya and the ayat al-kawniyya. As for the ayat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala shar'iyya, it is clear. Naam, kitab, sunnah, that which Allah Ta'ala has sent His prophets and messengers with. As for the ayat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala al-kawniyya, they are the signs of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala within His universe. And the ulama have explained to us that if you look at the ayat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala, He makes a distinction between the ayat of Allah and the khalq Allah. Now, even though the ayat of Allah Ta'ala al-kawniyya are likewise makhluqa, they are likewise created. Now, Shaykh al-Islam, he mentions in Rasul al-Thalatha, فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكَ بِمَا عَرَفْتَ رَبَّكَ, if it is said to you, by way of what do you know your Lord? Then you have to say what? بِآيَاتِهِ وَمَخْلُقَاتِهِ, by way of His signs and by way of His makhluqat. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, and from His signs, and from the signs of Allah Ta'ala, or the creation of Allah Ta'ala, or the night and the day, the sun and the moon. Now, and I like this to the end of that context. So if you look at it and examine the ayat of Allah Ta'ala, we find them, the night and the day, the sun and the moon, these are likewise creation of Allah wa ta'ala. So why did he distinguish the ayat of Allah from the creations of Allah when they are likewise creation of Allah Azza wa Jal? This is because the ayat of Allah wa ta'ala, al-kawniyya, they are those things which at certain times you see them and at certain times you don't. And this is an indication that they have a Lord that is managing and controlling them. You don't always see the sun 24/7. The sun, it rotates, it sets, it goes away. It's not always night or not always day 24/7. The night and the day, they rotate. Now, they alternate. Sometimes you see the night, sometimes you see the day. So even though these things are likewise creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're called ayat because at certain times you see them and at other times you don't, indicating the fact that there is a Lord that is managing and controlling these affairs. Now, this is why they are called ayat. So the Shaykh Shaykh Ubaid mentions, نعم سواء في ذلك آيات الله المنزلة منه على رسله. From that, or whether that may be the ayat of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala that are munazzala, meaning the legislative ayat of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala that have been sent down from him upon his messengers. وَبَلَّغُوهَا عَلَيْهِمَ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ أَتَمَّ الْبَلَاغِ, and they have conveyed those ayat with the most complete and perfect form of conveyance. وَهَذِهِ الْكُتُبِ وَمَا أَوْحَى اللَّهُ إِلَى رُسُلِهِ مِنْ سَائِرِ الْوَحِي, meaning these books and that which Allah Ta'ala sent down upon his messengers from the rest of the forms of revelation. وَمِنْهُ السُّنَّةِ, and from that is the sunnah, as the sunnah is divine revelation from Allah, in spite of what the Hajabira have to say about that. Rather, the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala are revelation from Allah Azza wa Jal. As Allah Ta'ala said, لا ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى. He does not speak of his own desire. Rather, what he says is revelation revealed to him by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And the Salaf would say, the angel Jibril, he would come and teach the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam the Sunnah, just as he would teach him the Quran. So we know that these Sunnah likewise enter into the general meaning of al-Wahi, of revelation from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Now, وَكَذَلِكَ الْآيَاتِ الْكَوْنِيَّةِ, and then you have the universal ayat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, that which we have previously mentioned, التي يدلل الله عز وجل على أنه هو وحده المستحق للعبادة. These ayat al-kawniyah are that with which Allah Ta'ala, he points to and indicates the reality that he alone deserves to be worshipped. فَأُولَٰئِكُمْ مُؤْمِنُونَ بِهَذَا وَهَذَا. So these individuals who are spoken about in these verses, they believe in both types of ayat, the universal ayat of Allah and the legislative ayat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. فَالْآيَاتِ الشَّرْعِيَّةِ المنزلة يحققون بها عبادة الله. So by way of these ayat, الشرعية, the legislative ayat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala that have been sent down, the believers, they utilize them to actualize the worship of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, تحقيقا يستكملون به اتباع محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. They do so with an actualization that complete, or by way of which they complete the following of Muhammad عليه الصلاة والسلام. والآيات الكونية يحققون بها كمال الاستدلال على أن الله منفرد بالعبادة. And they utilize the ayat al-kawniyah as evidences and proofs by way of which they establish that Allah Ta'ala, he alone has the right to be worshipped. كما أنه منفرد بالملك والخلق والتدبير وغير ذلك من أفعاله. Just as he is singled out and he is unique and alone in ownership, creation, and command, and the rest of that from his actions subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the second description that came in that set of verses. The third description is لا يشركون بالله, that they don't associate partners with Allah ta'ala, and this is clear. This is clear, and this is what the speech is concerning. The fourth description, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ أَنَّهُمْ إِلَى رَبِّهِمْ رَاجِعُونَ. Those who they put forth whatever they put forth, while their hearts are trembling, their hearts are afraid that they are going to return to their Lord. Meaning, they perform whatever actions Allah Ta'ala has made binding and obligatory upon them. They perform the obligations that Allah made binding upon them. Min fi'li awamirihi wajtinab nawahi, from enacting the commands of Allah Ta'ala and avoiding his prohibitions. وَمَعَ هَذَا قُلُوبُهُمْ خَائِفَةٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ. And in spite of the fact, this is a great and tremendous subtlety, and it's a wake-up call for anybody who Allah Ta'ala is favored and blessed with some level of religiosity and some level of clinging to the deen of Allah Ta'ala, for us not to be deluded, and not to think that Allah Ta'ala can't strip away this ni'mah that he has given you of religiosity and clinging to the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you won't be tried and tested in your deen with things that can perhaps shake you. And you will look at individuals of sin and transgression, as Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned in Kitaab Al-Iman. You will look at people of sin and transgression from two angles: the angle of the divine decree and the angle of the legislation of Allah Ta'ala. When you look at the individual from the legislative standpoint, then we know what the Sharia says about what they're doing. So therefore, they are blameworthy and deserving of whatever comes to them of punishment for doing whatever they are doing. Now, so the sinner, he is blameworthy for his sins and his transgressions. But when you look at them from the angle of the divine decree, then you understand that this is what Allah has decreed for that person. So therefore, you feel sorry for that person, and you are thankful and grateful to your Lord that he didn't decree it for you, because there could have been you disobeying Allah Ta'ala, sinning and transgressing against the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. That could have been you. So we should not become deluded by the fact that Allah Ta'ala has kept us safe from certain affairs. It's by way of his rahmah, by way of his ni'mah upon us. And he has not tried us with what he has tried that person with. Now, so look at this subtlety here that's mentioned inside of this verse. They put forth whatever they put forth, whether it is salah, whether it is knowledge, whether it is fasting, whether it is hajj, umrah, whatever they do of good deeds, perhaps authorship, perhaps translation, no matter what it may be of good, they establish dawrat. They do whatever they do of good, but yet and still they're not deluded. Why? Because Allah Ta'ala says, وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ. They do all of that, but their hearts are afraid. Their hearts are afraid. Why? Because they know they're going to return back to their Lord, who knows their reality. Now, he says that they perform whatever Allah has made obligatory upon them, from enacting the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal and avoiding the prohibitions of Allah. وَمَعَ هَذَا قُلُوبُهُمْ خَائِفَةٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ. And in spite of all of that, their hearts are afraid. They are afraid of Allah Ta'ala. Now, بَعِيدُونَ عَنُ الْغُرُورِ. They are far removed from being deluded, saying, I am a person of righteousness and piety. I am a Salafi, I am upon Sunnah, and I am thus, by way of that, safe, and I'm better than everybody else. La. يَخْشَوْنَ أَلَّا يَتَقَبَّلْ مِنْهُمْ. They are afraid that none of what they are doing is going to be accepted from them. How does Salaf work? To the point that some of them would say that if I knew that Allah Ta'ala, if I had a guarantee and I knew from Allah Ta'ala that he would accept even a mustard seed's worth of my deeds, that would be more beloved to me than the entirety of the dunya and everything in it. But we don't know that Allah is going to accept any of this from us. Any of this that we're doing, we're not sure and certain that Allah Ta'ala will accept these affairs from us. We pray to Allah that he does. He accepts a portion of it, a small portion of it, that we have done sincerely for his sake. And Allah Ta'ala is the all-knower of the hearts. He said that يوضحه ما رواه أحمد في مسنده وغيره, that what makes this clear is that which Ahmed has reported within his Musnad and other than him, from the hadith of al-Mu'mineen al-Barrah al-Taqiyya al-Sadiqa al-Afifa al-Husan al-Razan, that which is reported by the mother of the believers, the righteous, the pious, the truthful, the chaste, the one who safeguarded her private parts, the one who was an exemplary example for the women, and all other mothers of the believers were such. But I am referring to as Siddiqa bint Siddiq, Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr, radiallahu ta'ala anha. قالت, she said, قلت يا رسول الله, I said, O Messenger of Allah, concerning the statement of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْتُونَ مَا آتَوْا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ وَجِلَةٌ, those who gave, or those who put forth whatever they put forth, while their hearts are afraid. أَهُوَ الَّذِي يَزْنِي وَيَسْرِقْ وَيَشْرَبُ الْخَمَرَ, is this verse referencing the one who steals, fornicates, and consumes intoxicants? قَالَ لَا يَا بِنْتَ أَبِي بَكْرٍ, he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, no, O daughter of Abu Bakr. Or he said, Ya bint as-Siddiq. Or he said in another version of the hadith, no, O daughter of as-Siddiq. And in yet another version of the hadith, La ya Aisha, no, O Aisha. Shaykh Ubaid says, وَكُذَلِكَ الصَّحِيحُ مَقْبُولٌ عِنْدَنَا, all of these versions of the hadith are authentic and acceptable with us. When وَإِنْ رَغَمَتْ أُنُوفِ الرَّافِضَةِ, in spite of what these despicable and evil Rafida, these retarded Rafida have to say about it. We love our mother Aisha. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with her and make her pleased. She is the mother of the believers. If they don't believe that she is their mother, then sufficient is that as a proof against them. Now, the Messenger of Allah said, alayhi as-salam, it is not as you think, O Aisha. This verse is not speaking about those sinners who steal, fornicate, consume intoxicants. Rather, he says, وَلَكِنَّهُ الرَّجُلُ يَصُومُ وَيَتَصَدَّقُ وَيُصَلِّي وَهُوَ يَخَافُ أَلَّا يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنْهُ. He said, but it is the man who fasts, he gives sadaqah, and he prays. He's afraid that Allah Ta'ala will not accept any of it from him. The fifth description that Allah Ta'ala described his elite believers with, أُولَٰئِكَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ, they are those who hasten to do good deeds. يُسَارِعُونَ فِي كُلِّ خَيْرٍ, meaning every opportunity for goodness, they jump at it. They're quick, they race to it. For whom أَسْبَقُ النَّاسِ إِلَى كُلِّ خَيْرٍ, so they are the foremost of the people in every characteristic and quality of goodness. They don't let the people beat them. They don't sit back and let someone else seize the opportunity to do some good that they could have done. To the point that when some goodness misses them, they are saddened by way of that. Now, he says, سواء كان أمرا أو كان نهيا, whether it is a command that has been given, they are the foremost in the administering of those commands, or it may be a prohibition, you find them to be the furthest of the people away from that prohibition. فَفِعْلُ الْأَمْرِ بِامْتِثَالِهِ وَفِعْلُ النَّهِي بِتَرْكِهِ, the enacting of the command is by way of adhering to it, and the enacting of the prohibition is by way of avoiding it. وَهُمْ لَهَا سَابِقُونَ, and they are foremost in that. ذَلِكَ لِأَنَّهُمْ اسْتَكْمَلُوا تَأَسِّيَهُمْ وَاقْتِدَاءَهُمْ بِمُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم. That is because they have perfected and completed their taking the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam as an example and a role model. This concludes the speech of Shaykh Ubaid regarding that particular ayah, and we will likewise stop there, inshallah ta'ala. We have one question that we will take, and we will try to, inshallah ta'ala, summarize the jawab as there's time for salah here. No.
No. I'll send the question. Oh, no.
Okay. So the questioner says, when does a child become independent of himself such that he seek to move to another region to learn the religion? and live there away from his parents? How should he tell them? What should he do if the family disagrees of him leaving home to seek knowledge? And also, how can he refute their claim of I won't come back if I go? May Allah preserve you. Likewise, may Allah preserve the question. As it relates to this issue, when does the child become independent enough to stand on his own 2 feet? Thus, by way of that, enabling himself to go and to pursue knowledge independently of his parents. We say that this is something that varies person to person. An individual's ability to be independent and his ability to take care of himself, it varies from person to person, to the point that it has been mentioned concerning the author of this book that we're studying, Shaykh Al-Islam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahaab, that at the age of 14, his father saw within him the qualities of a man and got him married. He saw the qualities of manhood in him at 14, and thus he got him married. So we're able to see some of our youth that are like that. They're pretty much independent. They're able to take care of themselves and even contribute and take care of the household and so on and so forth. We see youth like this all the time, but we also see people who are older than that and can't take care of anything. Shaykh Ubaid mentioned concerning mahramiyah, right? A boy being a mahram for his mother to travel with and likes of this. He said mahramiyah is one thing. Mahramiyah, meaning be a mahram for one's mother, is one thing. Without a doubt, the son is a mahram for his mother, whatever age she may be. That's one thing, though. But the child being suitable enough to travel along with his mother and look after her affairs, this is something that's going to be dependent upon that specific child. If that child has the maturity, he has the sagacity, he has the fatana, yani he has the mental capacity to do all of that, then the child is able to be a guardian for his mother and travel, to be a guardian for her to look after her affairs, and like this, right? Because you'll find that many of the women, they may play games with this particular affair. Child is maybe 12 years old, 13 years old. Now he can't even take care of his own self. If the car were to get a flat tire, he's not able to help his mother and fix the tire. He's not able to do anything for it to protect her or anything. He needs to be protected. He needs to be taken care of. But she will take him and travel across the dunya with him, as though he is suitable enough for her to travel with. We say, as Shaykh Ubaid, he mentioned, that you find that this affair is not necessarily connected to a specific age. It's connected to the mental capacity of that person. Because you'll find an individual may be 50 years old. He's an ahmaq, he's an idiot, can't take care of anything. You wouldn't trust him over a single thing. Likewise, you find someone that's quite young and they have that maturity and that mental capacity to be able to look after their affairs, to take care of their responsibilities. They're able to take care of their own affairs. And like this, we say that the one who is like this, even if he may be quite young, then he's able to go out in pursuit of knowledge. He's able to go out in pursuit of knowledge. Now, as it relates to the relationship with the parents and speaking to them regarding this affair and his desire to go and seek ilm, then he sits them down, he expresses his desire for them. If they object, then he should not leave until he convinces them. Because the rights of the parents is tremendous. So tremendous, in fact, that Allah Ta'ala connected it to his right in many verses inside of his noble book. Now, and so he continues to try to convince them of the virtue of this affair and how the good of this will come back to them. If their son goes out, pursues knowledge, and comes back, he's able to teach and benefit, and then they will share in that reward by the permission of Allah Ta'ala. So he strives to convince them to the absolute best of his ability, and he should not just pick up and leave his parents behind crying while he goes off and he pursues. And rather, he should try to convince them until Allah Ta'ala makes a way for him to go and seek knowledge. As it relates to the claim that if he goes, he's not going to come back, this is something which none knows except Allah Ta'ala. None knows this reality except Allah Azza wa Jal. And so we don't pay attention to claims of knowledge of the unseen regarding things that none knows except Allah Azza wa Jal. And we make our intentions and we do the absolute best that we can to bring about the best result. And Allah Ta'ala's best. With this we conclude. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خيرا يا أستاذ الفاضل for taking time off your busy schedules to attend to your brothers and sisters. جزاكم الله خيرا ونفع بكم. Hope to see you in our next class. جزاكم الله خير. جزاكم الله حرصا وعلما نافعا.
آمين آمين الله يبارك فيكم جزاكم الله خير.
أستودعكم الله الذي لا تضيع ودائعه. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.